All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast. Here with your host today, Richard Fu from richardfu.com. And today I have a burnout master on the show. She is known as the burnout mentor. She's a speaker. She also has her own podcast show. But this is the most interesting thing here. She's also known as the virtual business Yoda. She helps entrepreneurs who are feeling they're on the verge of breaking to avoid this burnout stage, to avoid it all, because she's gone through it herself, not just once, not just twice, but multiple times. But I'm not going to steal her limelight from her. I'm going to give it to her so that she can tell you her real story and how she's helping people now avoid burnout. Her name is Victoria Klein. So guys, please welcome Victoria to the show. Victoria, good to have you on.
Thank you. It is such an honor to be here. And you make it sound like I am a spectacular failure, and I am, and I'm so glad to be here.
Well, Victoria, I couldn't talk about your hair, right? And I thought the Yoda would have brought green hair on the show today, but I guess we're just going to stick with blue. It's all good. And I'm excited to have you on. So, Victoria, for the people who haven't heard about you or your work, could you share more about how you help people and actually your whole story and how you got there?
Absolutely. Well, my story is long and winding, but at the moment I help people mostly one-on-one with actually through coaching and mentoring on any sort of stage of burnout that they're in, whether they feel like they're approaching burnout, they've hit it, or they've recovered from it and they just don't want to go through it again because it was the worst experience they've ever had. And of course, as you said, I have my own podcast as well, and I'm also a speaker. So I spend a lot of time getting in front of people. Usually it's mostly a reality check because we get so lost in the to-do list and the next thing that we forget that we actually started our businesses for a really big, awesome purpose, and that's to define freedom and success for ourselves.
Yes.
And we usually forget what that is. And we get so lost in the shiny pennies and the next thing. And we get obsessed with this belief that you're only as useful as the last thing that you've done. Mm-hmm. And we get stuck in that mindset. And so we get stuck in that obsession with constantly feeling the need to add something else to our list. I did this, and I did that, and I did this. We don't ever really take a chance to actually enjoy the things that we do or the accomplishes that we actually reach, which as entrepreneurs are a big deal. So it's nice to actually celebrate those and to kind of build that into our lives.
And I love that you bring this up that, there's multiple points here that I want to hit on again, is that, we all start a business, not so that we get stuck in a business. And I love that you bring that up because so often we get sucked into it. It's like, oh, it's okay, Victoria, I do what I love. And it's bullshit. Right? It's bullshit. I mean, you didn't do this because you just loved it. Yeah, you happen to love it and you're lucky that you do what you love too. But at the same time, it's to give you options, to give you that freedom to go do what you want, whenever you want and however you want. But the other thing that I want to highlight here, Victoria, that you brought up is that it's recently, I feel like over the last few years that there's been a lot of hype around the word hustle. Yeah. It's like, you got to hustle your face off and do this and be super busy. And I say, the biggest problem is people are chasing this badge of busyness. You're not in business, you're just in busyness. And you're just trapped doing it. It's like, Victoria, I don't even have time for this. And I feel good that I don't have time for this. And I think it's stupid. I think it's exactly what happens and why people end up being burnt out. And I'm sure this is something you've experienced before through your own life and in your own businesses. So could you share more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I consider myself an unfortunate master of burnout. I'm sure there are others that have had even more experience with it than me, but I can tell you that I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years and I destroyed 4 businesses because I burned out every single time. Now that burnout is often mixed with all kinds of underlying issues, self-sabotage, lack of self-worth, lack of focus, all kinds of different mindset issues. It's never as simple as I worked too much and I got sick of it. That's part of it, but you have to get behind it and figure out the why that you did that. And I love the fact that you brought up the business versus the busyness. That's a tweetable. That's a fantastic quote because it's totally true. And it's this obsession with, I love to brag about how busy I am. I would rather hear about what you think about when you're staring out the window doing nothing, because that's far more interesting than how crammed your calendar is, because that doesn't mean anything to me. That just means you found a way to keep yourself doing things. That doesn't mean you're accomplishing anything, though. So it's so easy to get, again, obsessed with do the things, do all the things, be in all the places, do all the social media outlets, be in every single constant capacity of output. And you never take a chance to rest. You never take a chance to recharge. And that's what happened to me with all 4 businesses that I built. I rose to the top really fast, and I figured the only way to stay there was to sacrifice myself, because, I mean, that's what everybody does, right? You know, business owners work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, that's what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And I would burn out every single time, and I would disappoint people. I would lose thousands of dollars. And despite all of my attempts to say, I'll just push through it, I'll just do it, I'll just do one more thing, if I just keep hustling, everything will be okay. And that's obviously not true at all. So I absolutely abhor the word hustle. So if you're ever around me, dear God, please don't say it, because it will send me on a rant. And I try not to. I really do. I try not to go into it. But man, we have a habit of not really thinking about what we say. I have a bit of an obsession with communication. I was a singer and an actor for years. I was a professional writer for 10 years. And so I have this thing with words, and people just spit anything out and say, just hustle a little and you'll accomplish everything you want. I was like, no, hustle means you're doing things that make you miserable. You think that misery is going to equal success, and it's not. That is not the magic formula. That is not how it works.
And so talk us through this. I mean, like you said, you built and then burnt down 4 of your own businesses. I mean, like, what's different, or why did it, the thing in my head is like, why did it seem like it had to happen 4 times for you to take a big look at yourself, and what's different now?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'm a human being, and I like to ignore those big red flags that come up like everyone else. So I would always try to find some sort of excuse as to why it didn't work. I'm living in the wrong city, or I'm not working out enough, or I didn't know the right people, or if I would have just blogged a little more consistently, it would have worked. And I would try to find all these external reasons. It obviously wasn't my fault. There's so much that goes into being an entrepreneur that it was obviously some sort of situation outside of me.
Yep.
And it took 4 times of doing it. And what I didn't mention is that in between each of those failures, I would go back and get a traditional salaried job. Every single time. I would return to traditional employment with the assumption that I failed as an entrepreneur. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. It's just not possible. I'm just not disciplined enough. So I would go back, get a traditional job. Within 3 months, I would be absolutely miserable, and I would leave and try again. So the thing that was different this time was a whole mix of factors. At the time, I was living in New York City, which was an unexpected surprise. My husband was in Afghanistan. He was in the Marine Corps. And so while he was risking his life, I was trotting around New York City doing whatever I wanted to do. And it felt like this weird juxtaposition of how he could be in that situation and I could be in mine. And that was totally normal. So I ended up going back to traditional employment. And I got a job at American Media. I was working for Men's Fitness magazine. And it was fun. It was actually fun to work in an office with people that were interesting and creative and all of that. And I was on the new job high. We've all had that, right? The new project high, that this is the thing that's going to change my life. And within the course of a few months, it was very, very obvious that while I enjoyed working there, it was not where I was meant to be. Because I was working 8-hour days, but I was only actually working 3 hours because it just wasn't that much work. You know, it's traditional employment. This is the box that you have to stay in, and this is what we asked you to do. So that's all you have to do. And despite my repeated attempts to try to improve the process, to save them money, to make everything more efficient, they didn't have any interest. So I left. And I got a job working full-time with another entrepreneur. She needed someone to help support her to just run her business for her because she's only one person and she couldn't do it herself. And we worked very, very closely for a few months. And then unbeknownst to me, unexpectedly to me, that relationship ended very quickly. within the course of 24 hours.
Right.
Totally took me away. I mean, I went from making thousands of dollars a month to nothing in less than 24 hours.
Mhm.
And so my entire life financially was pulled out from underneath me. And thankfully I had some money saved, and I didn't do anything for 2 months. I didn't look for a job. I didn't try to pursue any sort of job at all, whether it was traditional or from a business perspective. And it was losing that job so suddenly that made me realize that I obviously have the skill. She was paying me a lot of money to do things that were very easy for me. So it's clear I have the skill. I just didn't have the right client.
Yep.
So I decided to create the business that I have now, which originally started in virtual assisting and progressed into online business management, which I still have a few clients doing that. And then, of course, now I'm also mentoring as well. So it's one of those things that when you start to do the thing that comes really natural to you, it starts to take off on its own and becomes really successful all on its own. And, in the course of 3 months, my client roster was fully booked. I've never made as much as I've made in the past year as I have in my entire life. So I've already set new benchmarks for myself. And now I really am not focused on the money. It's not like, can I make this a 6-figure business? Can I make this a 7-figure business? I just want to find out what other entrepreneurs are struggling with, what is most messed up about them, and help them fix that, because you are your own worst enemy. You always will be. The market is an issue. Your marketing is an issue. Yes, all these things are important, but you are going to destroy everything that's possible. And you're always going to be the main thing standing in your way. So my goal is to help you get out of your own way in every way.
Wow, I love it. And I love the journey that you've taken us and all the listeners here on, is that you created, and you said something interesting here, Victoria, that we've been talking about a lot over the last few weeks here on the show, is a lot about like finding that groove, finding that like genius spots. And this is what we call the genius zone, is that there's a lot of things you're good at, Victoria. There's a lot of things I'm great at, and there's a lot of things that you're excellent at. But once you get into that genius, right, then everything just flows and everything just works a lot smoother, because you don't pretend to be a genius in what you're excellent at. You don't pretend to be a genius at what you're good at. You're just a genius in what you're great at and what you're really, really meant to be doing. And so talk us about this. I mean, like, why is it that entrepreneurs feel like they have to keep taking and doing everything themselves? And, what's the first steps that if someone feels like they're doing everything and they're trapped, what do you think they should start doing to start, I guess, becoming untrapped and avoiding the burnout?
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you the main problem that many of us entrepreneurs have, whether you were an entrepreneur right out of school or whether you went to traditional employment and you progressed into entrepreneurship, is we look at ourselves and our business as still being employees. So even if you're a solopreneur and you're the only one and you're doing everything, you still probably have somewhere in the back of your mind looking at yourself like an employee. These are the things that I have to do. These are in my job description. And you get very caught in everything that you know how to do. That doesn't mean you should be doing it. That doesn't mean it's helping you to be the one doing it. So there is a bit of a mindset shift of shifting from, am I the employee that gets stuff done? Or am I the CEO that has a vision that other people can help execute for me? Like, no one is ever going to be able to describe your business the way you do. No one is going to be able to create the vision, the excitement, the ultimate goal that you want the business to have. You started it. That is your job. And if you're not spending consistent time thinking about that, then it's going to get lost. You're going to get obsessed with the next shiny penny. You're going to get obsessed with the next social media, who's doing webinars, who's doing live chats, who's doing what. You're going to get obsessed with what everyone else is doing and thinking that you should be doing it versus following what your audience actually wants and what you actually want to do. I know a number of entrepreneurs, including some clients of mine, who used to do webinars consistently. Because everybody does webinars. I mean, webinars are great. And they would do at least 2 of them a week for months at a time. And were just absolutely miserable by the end of it. I can't do another webinar. This is awful. I mean, the sales were there, the results were there, but they didn't enjoy doing it. And the day after they admitted that to me, they had another webinar and they did it and it tanked. Nobody bought anything. And I said, that's exactly why, because you were honest with yourself about, I don't really want to do this. And everybody knew. You know, you can go all woo-woo with it if you want to, but everybody knew. People could tell your energy wasn't there. You didn't care anymore. And the moment you stop caring about your business, no one else is going to care about it. Absolutely nobody. Even if you pay them, they're not going to care about it as much as you do. So that little mindset shift of thinking, okay, I started this business. I have goals and dreams and freedom that I want to accomplish. And there is literally no way I can do it myself. No man is an island. No business is entirely self-contained. Even if you're just contracting, graphic design, social media management, whatever it is, those contractors, they're your team. Even if they're not employees, even if you're not paying their taxes, they're part of that super awesome vision that you created a business for. So the easiest thing to do, and the way that I tell a lot of people to do it, is keep a notepad next to you while you're working for an entire week, a whole week. Write down every single thing that you do, checking emails, whatever social media you go on, whatever software you use, write it all down. Just make it a habit. Whenever you open a new tab, when you move to a new task, write it all down. You're going to end up with a really long list because you're the CEO, you do all the things. And the week after that, grab a cup of coffee, grab some tea, give yourself at least an hour to go through all of it and start circling the things that you don't really enjoy doing. You just do them because you have to, because I mean, someone's got to do it, right? You know, I don't necessarily want to write social media updates for 3 hours a week, but sometimes I do. And most people probably don't even read them anyway. So start circling the things that you are doing just because you have to. And then comes the big decision. Do I really need to be doing this at all? Is it actually improving my business? Go back, look at your statistics and things like that. If it is, if you see your Twitter followers are going up and your sales are going up, then obviously being on Twitter is a good idea. Then the decision is, who can I have do this for me? Now, no matter what the random task is, someone will do it for you if you pay them. I can guarantee you that. People will pick up your laundry, they will cook your food, they will schedule your tweets, whatever it is, people will do those things for you. Now, I always recommend starting with your business because while that seems like the more intimate option, it's a little bit easier to hand that over to someone else because you can write up, this is how I do it, please do it this way, and 9 times out of 10 they will, and they'll do it fantastic. But of course, don't let it stop you there. By all means, cross over into the rest of your life as well. What else you can let go of that's not a big deal to pay someone else to do. I have a lot of my food prepared for me. I know that sounds really fancy. It's not expensive at all, but I do it because I can spend that time doing other things that enrich my business. Mostly I spend a lot of time reading. That's my obsession, is I read an obnoxious amount of information on a regular basis. So that's usually what I spend my time doing. And it's been great. My income keeps going up. I keep helping more people. I keep having more useful insights that actually help other people's lives versus while I love cooking, and I often do it on the weekends, during the week, I don't do a lot of it because it saves me time to do other things.
Yes.
So it's that opportunity of just looking where you could hand things up that you don't enjoy. You'd be surprised how even if you just save an hour a week, you let go of something you don't enjoy doing anymore. That sense of relief is worth way more than an hour of your time.
Oh, and I love that you bring it up, that especially that hour of the week, right? That saves you that. It's not just, and this is what we do now with our own business called Freedom Systems here, Victoria, is that, you know, we help people do that. We just help them clear out that space, clear out that noise, the pressure, the repetitive, the boring, so that they can actually focus and stay in that genius zone. And this is the thing here. You say this, and this is the truth. If this task actually only ends up taking you an hour. It ends up probably costing you half an hour to an hour to get ready to do the task, because you're like putting it off, you're procrastinating, you're like, I don't want to do that because I don't like it. But you don't say that, you just procrastinate, you put it off, and then you do it, and then after that you're totally drained. You're totally drained, and then it's probably like an hour, 2 hours after, you're like, oh, scheduling that social media stuff was really hard. So I'm going to reward myself and go watch something and go eat something, and then I'll get back into what I love at work, at my business. Yeah, and that's a real truth here, guys, is that, and I'm so glad that you brought it up, because so often we only factor in how long the task actually takes, but we don't factor in how much time is costed, or what's cost us to actually go into that task, do it, lose that energy, get drained from it, and then actually try and get back into flow, which costs even more time to get back in. Isn't that true, Victoria?
It's absolutely true. Finding that, as much as the word may seem hype these days, at least it's not the word hustle. I'm happy about that. But flowing is important. And while I'm one of those people that it took me decades to learn this, but batching my tasks saves me so much time. If I work on one thing for an hour, I get so much more done than trying to do 3 things in an hour, because I'm focused. I'm only doing one thing. I close all my other windows. I focus on finishing exactly what I'm doing. I do it right the first time. It's fabulous, and I can move on. But if I try to do sort of do 2 things at once, or heaven forbid, I leave my email open, you won't find me doing that anymore. And, I only kind of half do it. I only half pay attention. I end up making mistakes and have to go back and fix them, which spends more time. Then I'm mad at myself for making the mistake, which wastes more time. And it's those little losses, like you said, that really, really start to add up. And those are your red flags. Those are your things that you look out for. When you finish doing something, you're like, oh God, can I just take the rest of the day off? You're like, okay, I shouldn't be the one doing this anymore. I need to find a way to outsource this, to delegate it, and to make it easy for someone else to take over.
I love that you bring that up. And then, what do you say to those that are like, Victoria, I know I need to expand my team. Victoria, I know I need to get VA or whatever, but I just don't have time. And I don't have time to train someone up. I mean, I'm flat out busy as it is doing everything else. What would you say to someone like that?
Well, there's always the lovely phrase of you make time for what's important. And I hate to be an old school stickler like that, but it's true. And as someone who's been there, before I hired a VA for myself, I was doing all the things. So I totally understand. But you'd be surprised how much time it does not take. So if you're already doing something, like let's use scheduling social media as an example. If you schedule tweets to Twitter once a week, fabulous. Now you have a consistent schedule already. So you need to hire someone to schedule tweets once a week. Perfect. Now you do it the same way every time. Very most likely. You get tweets and information from the same source, you write some yourself, and then you schedule them all. Wonderful. So now you have a rough process. The key is taking an extra, you can be surprised, it only takes an extra 20 minutes. When you're in the midst of doing it, write down how you did it. Step by step, how you did it, any sort of little specific preferences. If you're scheduling a blog post, what categories do you use? Do you use a featured image or not? If they're making the image, where do they get their content? Make little notes of all those little things, and then read over it and imagine that they had never logged into Twitter before. If they'd never seen it, they didn't know what the buttons did, make sure the detail is in there. And then after that, it's really not that hard. I know it sounds like I'm totally downplaying it, but Facebook groups, your fellow entrepreneurs, ask around. Do you know anybody that does social media scheduling? I can't wait to, get this off my plate. And you'd be surprised. People just start throwing names at you. This is who I use. She's fabulous. Use this person, use that person. I would say interview max 3 people. Pick the one that you enjoyed talking to the most. Don't care about the rest of it. Pick the one you enjoyed talking to the most. Bring them on for a few weeks. Pay them. If it goes well, let them have it.
Yeah. Oh, such great advice, and I love it because I'm a systems guy too. Right? I sit there and like, that's true, that's true, that's true. You've got to do that, got to do that. I love it. And so, Victoria, it pains me to actually start wrapping up the show here because it's just the time constraints here that we're hitting, and it's I'm just enjoying it so much. And so, as we hit into the quick fire question rounds here, Victoria, so we're going to start with our favorite one here. It's called the time travel moment. The signature one that we have here is that. Basically, Victoria, if you could go back to any moment in your life, in any of those 4 businesses that you burnt out in, and you could tell, little Victoria, one piece of advice that you know today, when would you go back to and what would you tell her?
Oh, wow. I would probably go back to the very first one, which my first job, and I started this in high school, is I was an actor and I was a model. I mostly was a model. Mm-hmm. Now, as an industry, it sucks because it's all about how you look. Now, there's nothing more painful for your ego than someone being obsessed with how you look. And the thing that I would tell her is that do not waste another minute on this because you have had a doubt. The moment you have one doubt, you should think of something else. If you aren't excited about this anymore, and I know you're not because I know who you are, there's something better for you to do with yourself. So instead of looking out, what do I do next? Who do I ask what I should do? Don't. You're wasting your time. Just spend some time with yourself, as much as that is really creepy and unpleasant at first. The more you understand yourself, the more successful you will be. It's that simple.
Great. Love it. Love it. Next question I have for you, Victoria, is it sounds like you've, mastered the online business management side of things. And I'm sure you've read a lot of books since you told me before. That's why you outsource so that you can read more. I mean, if there's one book that's a total must read for people who are doing everything by themselves and they know they need to start outsourcing or even start getting more help, what would that book be, man?
I am going to have to go with, this one might not seem related, but it really is. The Happiness Equation by Neil Pasricha. It's a fantastic book. You can read it probably in the course of a couple hours. I had him on my show. He's spectacular. And it's all about the very, very little things that actually bring us the greatest happiness. And there's a whole bunch of information on how you're wasting a ton of your time, which includes delegating and doing less. So it's a fantastic book. It blew my mind open, and I can't recommend it highly enough.
Nice. We'll add that into the show notes. And the last thing here, Victoria, as we wrap up here, I want to check in with you is, we've covered a lot of topics here. We've covered a lot of information over here on the show. But is there anything else that you want to share with our viewers here before we wrap up this episode that we didn't get a chance to on this episode?
Oh, wow. I could make a whole episode about that, but
no, Richard, we got plenty to go through.
I know. Oh, we got it. We got a lot. But the one thing I would leave people with, as simple as this may sound, is life is an experiment. We take it way too seriously. It's life. No one's getting out alive. This may sound grim. We're all going to die. We're all going to look the same afterwards. So, you know what? I don't care. I mean, I'm 32. I got a lot of life left. If I'm lucky enough, I've got many, many decades left, but I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste it doing another webinar that I don't enjoy doing. I don't want to waste it following another social media platform that I couldn't give two shits about. I'm not going to waste my time doing that anymore, because no matter how you slice it, your time in the grand scheme of things is very short. So take some time, understand yourself, define what freedom and success is for you, because my version of success is not yours, and it's not his, it's not hers. It's totally different than everybody else's. So take your time to define that, write it down, and post it everywhere you can see it. And every time you make a decision, check in with that definition that you wrote. And if it doesn't get you closer to that, don't do it. It's a waste of your time.
Wow. That's power right there. That's power right there. And so, Victoria, thank you again for jumping on the show. If people want to connect with you and learn more about your work, where's the best place they should head to?
They should head to behindthebossmask.com. That's my website. You can also search for the show on iTunes. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Those are the social media platforms I actually enjoy. So those are the ones I actually use. You'll find me on Twitter and Instagram mostly. Facebook is insane. I try to get on there as often as I can. But definitely come find me, chat, ask me 1,000 questions. I love to answer questions and I love to help.
Awesome. We'll add that into the show notes too. So once again, well, thank you, Victoria, for jumping on the show and sharing your wisdom here with us and all of the listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Richard. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yes. And so, guys, this wraps up another episode of the Forge Your Life podcast here with the lady behind the boss mask, Victoria Klein. And I want you to know this. I want you to lift off your mask because Victoria wants this to go out there. We need to start sharing this. We need to start putting her message out there, not just her message, all the other guests' messages out there in the world too. So please head on over to rate the show on iTunes because this is the thing. If you felt that Victoria was amazing, then give her 5 stars. If you thought I was poor and not doing a good enough job and talking too much, throw us 1 star and that's okay. We'll learn how to do better. And of course, guys, head on over to richardfood.com to grab all the resources and show notes from the show here today. And remember to go out there, go live with love, go smash it. And I'll see you again on the next one.